Wow, 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 wow. Super Wookiee time.
Well, everybody, get your incense, get your headbands, get your wah-wah pedals. It's time to talk about Jimi Hendrix.
I'm high as a Georgia pine.
It's a little early for that, but in spirit.
Right. In spirit.
But so here's the deal. Aaron and I both have a great love for this Hendrix album, but it's not one of the mainline ones. The Experience records are fantastic and testaments of music history without a doubt. But we are going for the Band of Gypsys.
Yo! He just floats in the background.
Graphics. I'm here with you right now, children.
Right. It's like you became like a life-size cutout of Jimi Hendrix there for a few seconds.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I've had this thing since high school. I guess I had a cassette.
Yeah.
First copy. What about you? What was your first copy?
I think that CD I just held up. That was 97 is when it was released. I do not remember it. I do not remember owning it in 97, quite honestly, but sounds good. I feel like I found out about it later, like maybe, but also I'm old, so the memory gets foggier and foggier. The tighter this headband gets, it gets foggier and foggier. So it could have been, but yeah, I think like 97 was that. And I have probably played it 8 bajillion times.
Right.
Yeah, and then I got a vinyl, a more recent vinyl copy in the last couple years because I heard a lot of really good things about mastering on it and all that they'd fixed some of the problems with the earlier ones, which I'd also had an earlier copy, like an OG guy that was meh.
Yeah. And that's actually what I was working with. This is like semi OG-ish. The little sticker here says gold record, like
gold.
They're so and it came out in 75, which is about 5 years later. So it's a repress, but it's of the decade.
Yes.
And it does have the challenging audio. And that's why a lot of folks kind of, don't really consider this one. They're like, whatever. It's just a live thing, and it's kind of rough. So they kind of put it on the back shelf.
Right.
But we're here to tell you that it's top shelf. It's absolutely.
You got to listen, kids.
Yes, you got to get on. So I mean, even the old version that is a little murky still has a great vibe, an incredible feel, like few other Hendrix performances, except for maybe Woodstock.
Yeah, I was always a big fan of. I know that's arguable to say the least about that. The Woodstock performance. A lot of people were like, "Oh, well, that's just Hendrix like throwing it together and whatever." Is like, but if that's like you're throwing it together, that's a pretty good thrown together. Like, I mean. As far as thrown together shows go, it's pretty great. And given all of the things that were going on with even putting that show on, for it to be emotionally investing at all is pretty awesome. So, and you have the Star Spangled Banner. So.
No doubt. No, I mean, yeah. No doubt. Woodstock. We'll hit that one. Me and Aaron were both at Woodstock. I just wanted to point that out. We were there pre-embryonic. Yes.
Yeah. That's where I was born with this installed.
I was actually conjured from a pool of mud. Some hippies gathered around a pool of mud, and they put all these like herbal remnants inside of it and did a chant, and I was created.
Yeah. But I came from the factory with this headband.
Yes.
This was factory installed.
But so back to the Band of Gypsys.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, but it is relevant to mention Woodstock because the Band of Gypsys represents a turning point, a cultural turning point, and you can hear it. You can kind of feel it.
Yeah.
You know, the 60s, despite all the flower and all the power and all the optimism and all the great cultural change, we're coming to a kind of dark moment, late 69. You know, a lot of people were dying. Things were getting dark and scary. And that comes across in the Band of Gypsys. It's more, it comes down to earth. It's a little less sci-fi feeling, a little less comic booky. It's Hendrix doing some soul searching with tracks like Machine Gun and, you know, Power to Love, Message.
All the loves.
All the love.
All the loves. And he also like strangely gave his not strangely, I mean it was kind of awesome of him to give his bandmate, like, is it 2 tracks on here that are
yeah. We should like slow down a second and explain the difference between the experience and the Band of Gypsys. I think that's important because it's the whole rhythm section changes out.
Right.
You know, in the experience, you've got Mitch Mitchell and Noel Renning and a couple of British dudes, and they bring that British vibe to the experience. Like that's what I love about them. You know, it definitely feels like more like the Who and Cream, and it's just. Yeah,
it's off to the races seemingly all the time. Very busy drumming.
Yes.
Busy bass playing. Not in a bad way either. It's like I feel like they really pushed what like a trio could do in a lot of ways. Like that's a lot of noise being made by 3 guys and very little in the way of like, I mean, even live, you could hear it. It's like without the overdub factor, it was just like, wow. Like that's a lot of sound.
Furious energy, a very forward, ahead of the beat, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Pushing the beat. That's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah, pushing it.
But then, you know, the Band of Gypsys, after like some legal shenanigans, and you know, the band goes into flux, and it's actually kind of a slow transition because initially, Mitch Mitchell stays in place, and that's who you see at Woodstock, and then you got Billy Cox on bass.
Yeah.
And that's an old Army buddy of Hendrix's, and they played like the R&B circuit, and you can hear that that history between them.
Yeah.
So then that's a little transition, and then eventually Mitchell moves and Buddy Miles comes on board, and Buddy Miles has not only the drumming skills, but he brings vocal qualities and songwriting.
Yeah.
And that's where we were about to head into. Hendrix opened the door for Miles to bring 2 of his own original compositions to the Band of Gypsys concert. Changes and We Gotta Live Together.
Gotta Live Together, yep. And I think changes had been done in his former band, which is like Electric Flag, I think was the name of the band, something like that, which upon really diving into this, I think I finally found some of, you know, thank you, internet, whoever is finding all of these things that probably became super obscure at some point. But I was able to find more Electric Flag than I had ever found in the past. And like, oh, and it sounds like this, but, you know, slightly more in the like funk vein. But definitely still, I mean, you can tell that guy's going to bring like his feet firmly planted, growing roots into the ground, like just raw, I'm laying this beat down and we're going for it.
I'm glad you said feet on the ground because that is the difference. You know, we were just talking about how the experience is very like forward tempo and like aggressive motion. But this is like very grounded, very like every track on the Band of Gypsys concert pretty much revolves around a repetitive bass and drum groove, very like R&B funk kind of template.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because like you know, Hendrix was celebrated in the white rock world, you know, touring with the Monkees and worshipped by the Who and Cream and all Pink Floyd and all the contemporaries. Right. But this was Hendrix opening his ears and really like making a statement about his own culture. because he's pulling in influences from Sly and the Family Stone. I'm hearing that, like the funk grooves. And then there's kind of a chicken and egg thing with like electric Miles Davis and Hendrix. Like, yeah, you've always heard that it was Miles hearing Hendrix that made him want to go electric and go down his fusion road.
Right.
But then at the same time, you know, obviously Jimmy is also listening to Miles in terms of improvisation and like playing with rhythms and getting inside of a chord and being modal.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of funny because you think contextually, obviously, none of this is happening in a vacuum. So these people are all hearing each other and like bouncing things off of each other, either intentionally or unintentionally. So it's like, it is fun to think about like the first time Miles hears Hendrix, and then alternatively, like Hendrix kind of being like, huh, that sounds good, but what if I did that?
Yeah. That with 3 people instead of 15.
yeah. Okay, let me try that, you know. But there's also like Funkadelic has put out at least, I mean, they were on a tear, so it was like 82 records by this point.
Yeah.
But those first like 3 to 4, like with Eddie Hazel being in there, which was also very close to this kind of thing. I'm always reminded of that. Those first like 3, especially Funkadelic records, kind of come to mind when you hear this, and that same like the band is here and rooted so that they are sort of a vehicle for everything else that's going on, and the rhythm section is just like supporting this, and they know that at some point he's going to fly and he just needs the air under the wings and let him rip, you know.
And he does fly.
Yes, he does.
So this might be a good transition into just a track by track. So I mean, there's like 6 tracks on the thing. So I think we can say a thing about each and every one of them.
Oh, sure. Probably 2 things about some of them.
Yes. One of them we will probably talk about more than others because it's truly the centerpiece. And you know, if you know, you know.
Right.
But the opening track, Who Knows? It's this is a Hendrix track, but it's Buddy Miles doing like the lead vocal on it.
Right.
Okay. So and again, you know, it kind of sets the tone with like the repetitive bass and drum groove.
Yeah. Which is a weird groove. Like,
yeah.
And I saw like going through this, I saw a lot of people like talking about how to play it. And there's like, somebody can correct me down below in comment town, but like, I think there's a lot of like, or at some point there was a lot of like, this is how you play it. And a lot of those kind of videos. And then somebody was like, no, he starts like kind of in the middle of what you think is the actual, you just don't actually hear it because he's playing like really soft. And so like, it's a weird, you can even hear them kind of struggle with sort of staying in it together sometimes. Like they get a little bit loosey-goosey on the rhythm. And I mean, I'm assuming this was like show 3 or 4 too, which we should also probably mention. These were not, this 6-song list is not in order by any means, and nor is it like one consecutive performance. There was like 4 shows over 2 nights, I think, something like that. And those are on another live set of discs. Music for Groovy Children, I think is the name of it, where you can hear all of it, which I also tried to like, I kind of stayed away from for a long time because I did not want to know how it actually went down in case there was like a better machine gun somewhere that would like ruin my world. Like, no. But yeah, you can hear them like we're kind of working this out sometimes even as we go, because I guess they really hadn't at this point they hadn't played live at all yet. So this was like the first time people are seeing them. So it's fun.
And the other fun thing about Who Knows is it ends with some scatting. And
Masterful.
Right. You know, I'm on the fence about scatting. I've been called upon to scat here and there, and sometimes I feel okay about it, and often I say, no, I shouldn't. I should not have scatted. but Mr. Miles does a fine job of scatting, and it's catchy and it stays in your head.
It does. It really does.
It wraps up the tune, and it also the who knows kind of gives you a little hint of the warts and all vibe that Band of Gypsys has, because like song ends, it starts to peter out, and like it kind of falls apart at the end. Like two guys wrap up, and then boom, there's like this random bass note kind of off to the left. So it just goes to show you, like, you know, despite these guys being, you know, just top level musicians and amazing dudes, they're humans. It's you get in that musical trance, and then the spell's over, and you're like, gotta end it.
We still got like 22 songs to play.
and now you know why so many songs from the 70s fade out.
Right.
Nobody
it's going. What's happening? Yeah.
But what is happening is that the second track on this album is the centerpiece. It is the I don't know, give me a French word that sounds fancy.
The piece de resistance.
It's the thing. So Machine Gun, this track kind of predates Band of Gypsys, but it didn't really come to life until the Band of Gypsys rhythm section approached it.
Right.
So these guys, it's a long song, but don't let that scare you away. It's a long piece of music, but it stays compelling. It's 13 minutes, but it keeps you involved with the atmosphere and the drama and the musicality. There's a guitar solo in the middle of this that just defies description. Yeah. It really has, like, it's condensed Hendrix. He has like a little bit of every little trick that he does all in one little piece.
Yeah, it's definitely my favorite, and I will argue this point with anybody ever forever, that it's like I think it's the best guitar solo ever committed to tape, because I think it encapsulates so much that was going on, and even at the time, you can feel like what he's trying to say, like in a social commentary sort of way. You can feel what he's trying to say in a musical sort of way. Like I feel like he's hearkening back to things. He's also like giving you little nods to, like, it sounds like Coltrane and Sheets of Sound and that whole thing. It sounds like Second Great Quintet Miles and Wayne Shorter, and then Electric Miles, and it sounds like Archie Shepp and Ornette Coleman, and it goes like into like literal bomb noises at one point. Like he's like imitating artillery. It's crazy. And it never feels like he's like, I've run out of ideas, or I need an extra string here, or, you know, it's like he's like seemingly completely in command, and also in command of like his equipment. Like it doesn't sound like he's having the technical difficulties that he had at like that mar some of his earlier performances with effects and all that, which were all brand new technology at that point, which we take for granted now. Like, oh, my battery failed, I got to change it, you know, except in his day, it was like, I might step on this thing and it opened a portal to hell. Who knows? I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, you're right. There is a lot of cool, like fun stuff and innovative stuff with effects pedals, because we all know Hendrix is the king of the wah-wah pedal from Voodoo Child. You know, rhythmic rocking back and forth. But with Machine Gun, he's doing some stuff where he's not rocking it. He's just kind of like putting it in this position or in that position, just to scoop that EQ. Yeah. And it makes it really creates this like this weird honk. That combined with the feedback, combined with, you know, techniques like playing triplets over the 4 rhythm section, all those things, that's what creates the sheets of sound you're describing.
Yes.
It's sounding like a heck of a lot more than 3 guys.
Right. Right. And he's got, I mean, from the get-go, that first note, him just digging in on that one note, like that seems like it lasts for like 10 minutes, even though it's not. It just seems like this is too much. I can't take this all the information that's happening. And it's so much, it's like he's like fully bridge pickup. I think even probably cocking that wall like you're talking, just to give it more, just bite. And it's just like everything sounds intentional and purposeful, but not like overthought at all. It sounds like the best of his soloing capabilities all wrapped into one. I mean, that's probably half the song. So we'll call it 6+ minutes of just him just flying, just ripping. And the band, to their credit, is just letting him talk.
like we were saying before, these guys are solid meat and potatoes rhythm. Like there's no rushing and there's no like bullshit fills. It's like, locked.
Yes. And they play that. I think the bass line doesn't change, maybe twice for the entirety of the song. And like, it is the best example of a guitar solo that I think. I mean, there are many great guitar solos. I'm not saying that, any of the other great guitar solos in the canon of great guitar solos are not great. But this one for me is like head and shoulders. Like as a drummer, I feel like this and the like Woodstock performance like really influenced me as like a drummer. Even like it's just so rhythmic, like everything about it, even just the solo and like the way they like suddenly the drums are doing the like machine gun fill thing again, like in the middle, and that lends itself again to like evoking the like militaristic aspects of what they're trying to say about war being, well, horrible and violent and not a good way to go, and which is also mirrored in the lyrics.
And that atmosphere is well captured with the lyrics and just the overall vibe of the tune. I mean, especially like when the solo is over and it gets into Buddy Miles comes in with this, that always takes me to the jungle.
Yes.
Like every single time, it's like all of a sudden this like dark purple green jungle, and
yes.
I'm kid from Iowa that has no idea how to use my artillery, and it's bad.
Right. Yeah, we've gone to the other side at that point.
It takes you there. It really takes you there. Yeah. But you mentioned something interesting about how in control Hendrix was, and that's cool that you brought that up, because he's known for stuff like setting guitars on fire and humping amps and knocking things over and just being big and dramatic and like scarves and headbands and whatnot with the experience. But these 4 shows, a lot of people, it was almost a criticism. People were like, Hendrix is just standing still. Like he's not doing any of that shit during this run with this band. Like he's completely focused. Yeah. So there is a control, like a more efforted control. Yeah, and you hear that in that machine gun solo, and really in all this stuff with these like deep grooves and just down to earth kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely. I think he was like more about setting his guitar on fire with the like ferocity of his licks than with actual lighter fluid and a match.
Right. He'd refine.
Yes. Check this out, And let's not forget, for all of those who do not know this about Jimi Hendrix, he was playing a right-handed guitar upside down.
Yes.
Because he's left-handed. So like
it's all a challenge. It's like an upside down guitar with experimental brand new pedals never known to man. Yeah. Alien.
Because I think there's I don't know how readily known that even that little tidbit is. Like he's not playing like a reverse headstock guitar. Like, no, kids, that's a guitar that's completely upside down.
There were not a lot of custom mods back then. It was you did it.
Yeah.
but okay, so then spooky part, woo, and then there's a fake out. You think Machine Gun's over? It kind of peters out, and this happens in a couple of tracks that they're so dynamic. They get so quiet.
Yes,
You think they're over. You think this it's done. I'm gonna go, and then it's back.
Yes,
he comes back and he does all of the Woodstock bombs with the whammy bar. Woo!
Yes,
So then there's a proper destructo ending.
Yes, and even then it gets quiet, crazy quiet again. Because I remember when I first heard this, I was like, "Oh, it's over," but nobody's clapping. Like, why are they not literally setting the place on fire? Because that was the greatest thing they've ever seen. And then I crank up the volume, and they're still just rat-a-tat-tat-tat. All. I'm like, oh my God, they're still playing the song. It's so good. It's so good.
Oh man. So that's Machine Gun. And it wraps up side one if you're in the vinyl mode. And then side two is 4 tracks, and it's interesting pacing. We got the 2 Buddy Miles songs at the beginning and end, and then Hendrix has got a couple of tracks, Power to Love and Message of Love, in the middle. Yeah. So changes. What's your take on changes?
Well, my mind is going through them changes. Yeah. I don't know. That's pretty much it. I mean, it's a great funk song. The riff is real awesome. Yeah, it's like you really get into the groove. But I feel like it's the most. I'm looking at it right now. I feel like it's the most straight ahead of the entire 6 songs that are represented here. I mean, there are other, again, if you see the track listing for all of these shows, there are some, Purple Haze is in there. All the ones you were wanting to hear if you were a Hendrix fan show up at some point. But as far as these 6 go, I think Changes is pretty much the most straightforward and the most sounding like a Sly Stone song in parts. It has that weird turnaround in it. Which, I mean, again, as a drummer, just listening to that rhythm section just really gets the headband to flapping. But yeah, I mean, I dig it. I think it became more of a favorite of mine after listening for this again more often to it. I think a lot of times I'll just after Machine Gun, I'm like, I need a minute.
Totally true. I mean, honestly, I do sit through side 1 more often. That side 2 is great, but it's also got it's not as heavy. It's not as, it's the grooves are still there. Every single one of these 4 songs has a killer groove.
Yes.
But the lyrics are kind of transitional. I would say Changes is probably the most developed because it did come from a previous project. Like you said, Buddy performed that in the previous band. So it was fully done baking at that point. Right. And then the next 2, the Hendrix tracks, Power to Love and Message of Love, those are a little more on their way. They're in the oven. They're in the oven. Yeah. And I think you can follow those 2 tracks further along. They ended up being possible contributions for his 4th studio album, the first Rays of the New Rising Sun. So I think the lyrics got polished and the arrangements got polished more for those releases. Right.
Yeah. And I think Power to Love is the one that I always, there's a 10 megaton bomb snare drum hit that happens right before it comes in. They've been just kind of chugling and grooving along, and then they kind of drop. Hendrix hits sounds like he hits a harmonic, just a bing, and maybe Buddy's vocal mic was left on accidentally when he cracks it down, and it sounds like Thor's hammer just hit the stage Gah-gow! And then it's Hendrix is into the solo, and I'm like, well, that's worth the price of admission right there. If it sounded like that on the night, then it was the best, because it's so crazy loud. I love it so much.
But that's another cool thing about Band of Gypsys. It's not like overly post-produced.
No.
There are plenty of warts. There's like miscues and things like that, and I love that. That's very human, and it makes you feel like you're really at a concert, because especially in the 70s, live albums were not really live albums. Like they would I don't know, I could throw out some examples, but I won't. But anyway, they would just go by guitars and background vocals and sweeten them up.
Yeah. But you got a great drum take for the whole night. Like, okay, cool. We'll keep that and we'll overdub everything else.
Everything else. It'll be perfect. It'll be just like the studio album. But this, not here. Band of Gypsys is like, it's a real, deadheads would appreciate this. People that like, or anybody that just likes raw, unedited music. Totally human. Very, 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 warts and all.
Yeah, what's a Message to Love, and then We Gotta Live Together, yeah?
That and We Gotta Live Together always kind of disorients me a little bit because it has a fade in it. So it's a little weird to be listening to a lot. And I was just talking about how authentic this shit was. And then there's a fade in.
Right.
So it's like all of a sudden we're in the middle of a jam. And, I read up on it, and sure enough, this was the middle of a jam. Like they had just done Voodoo Child, and now they were like morphing into the Buddy Miles song, We Gotta Live Together.
Yeah.
Which is a great. What's that?
Oh, sorry. This one was not, I don't know. This one was an Electric Flag number.
Oh, I'm not sure. Is it?
I think it was. I think this was like another, I could be completely wrong, and I'm sure the algorithm will tell me that I'm, but I feel like this was like they had worked on.
Okay.
But he had not like released this somewhere else.
Okay.
Yeah.
But, oddly enough, my first time hearing We Gotta Live Together was on a Jaco Pastorius bootleg. Like he had some live in New York City, and he had a little trio, and they did a medley of like Sly and the Family Stone. And then it morphs into Changes and We Gotta Live Together. So for years, I thought it was his song. And then when I finally ended up getting Band of Gypsys, I'm like, wait a minute, how are they doing this Jaco thing? No.
Do you remember did someone turn you onto this, or did you just find it?
I think it was just going. It's just like just going through the motions with Hendrix. Like I'd already had all the experience stuff,
right?
And then it was like, oh well, there's that one. What's that?
Right.
I probably just picked it up casually, but I don't remember anybody like saying, "Listen to this dude."
Right. I mean, I feel like I was, because we were. So the version I had 97, which we were in the middle of Woodstock nostalgia time, was still high. The 90s were, a time when everything seemingly, you could make a record that sounded like anything and it would be like on the radio tomorrow. Sort of like just all kind of like, I mean, just look at the Billboard charts, kids, for the 1990s. They were a weird place.
It was.
But like during, there was like some sort of family switch over, I remember, and like all these reissues started coming out, which is what this was. And I feel like I just walked in, same as you, like I had Are You Experienced and Axis Bold as Love, and I was always Electric Ladyland always was like the one that I was like, it's so much music and there's so much going on. It took me a long time to get into that one, but I always had it and I always tried it. Like I was like, maybe today's the day that it hits me. And I'm like, half of it, yeah. I'm not so sure what's happening. And then later it did. But when I remember going, and honestly, the photo, I was like, what is that? What is that? Like, who is this guy? It's like, I know that guy, but I've never seen that before. And like the logo was cool. Like it was just like, yeah. I don't know. I need to be hip to that jive because I don't know what's happening in there, but it's going to be good.
Yes.
And then, you know, obviously getting home and doing my research and listening was like mind melted. But I don't remember anybody, even amongst the people that we both knew in Carrollton, where we were, amongst all the people that we knew who played music, I don't remember anybody being like, you got to listen to Band of Gypsys. Like, strangely.
I think it was a lot of it just having to do with legal stuff, because we could do an entire series just about Hendrix's discography. Because for God's sake, the guy had 3 albums with the Experience in this Band of Gypsys record, but somehow or another that turned into like 500 albums released by 1,800 different companies.
Right. And tributes.
Yes. I mean, and over the years, it has gone through all kinds of permutations, and there's dubious releases and interesting releases, but I mean, things have been in and out of print, and what is canon is
right.
Like say, what is canon?
Right.
So around the mid 90s, I think the Hendrix family ended up regaining most of the rights to all of his stuff and started like putting it out in a structured way. So, you know, it became easier to get some of these off-kilter albums, and we started getting new stuff like Voodoo Soup and South Saturn Delta.
Oh yeah.
And those kind of things, compilations, and Band of Gypsys was part of that. So very likely, it was just like, oh yeah, more new Hendrix. Just get that.
Right. You're at the CD shop. You're gonna get your CDs here.
Yeah, come on down to your Turtles records.
Yeah, because I definitely I mean, it's definitely even on the labels on mine is like Experience Hendrix. So that was like after the family like got a hold of it and started reissuing it. But yeah, it occurred to me. I was like, oh yeah, we didn't really talk about how we even like came across it as far as like, because it's such a heavy, like I couldn't imagine now not knowing about this. So it's like poor young me. Just like, I'll never be Mitch Mitchell. Like, you know, trying to play some like horrible version of Fire or something like that is like the most I can muster. And, you know, getting this and like, oh, like this speaks to my Georgia boy soul a little bit.
It's a different beat.
Yeah, in a way that some of that other stuff didn't.
Right. Right. And it shows some progress. And it's weird, you know, because we're like making a huge deal out of it, but it was really a band that existed for 5 gigs, because they did 4 gigs for New Year's, you know, and then they played a half a gig on January 28th and broke up after 2 songs.
Right.
Like something went wrong. Some interpersonal stuff happened, and but you know, oddly enough, but in between those handful of gigs, the trio did do a handful of studio recordings, and some of that shows up on the first Rays of the New Rising Sun and all that you know, Cry of Love and Crash Landing, and you know, it's spread out. That we can put some notes in the comments or something. Yeah,
there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot to unpack about his career. Like it was a strange time, kids, to have been a musician, because seemingly you were at the whims of those who owned your contract to a degree that you would not be these days, more than likely. Like it was just the music business in general was run in a different manner. And I think people just thought that was how you had to do it. And unfortunately it ran a lot of people ragged and or into a dark place, either financially or, you know, you get the feeling that Hendrix was like an artiste first, and he was not the businessman, and there was not necessarily somebody around him all the time to be like, hey, you don't have to do that. And like, if you want to do a 4-minute solo in Machine Gun Tonight, it's totally fine. You don't have to give your entire, you don't have to like literally give blood on stage to like or float the bills, you know. It's like, it's fine, you know, go rest for a few days. Or like, hey Jimmy, we got to pay off this bill. We need to play those 3 shows so we can do that. No, there was nobody. It was like, what can I get out of Jimi Hendrix today? Is kind of how it seems.
Yeah. Oh,
Which
yeah.
that story is not only, about Jimi Hendrix. That's about a lot of people, unfortunately.
Sure. My goodness. There was just this constant, like, just go make some flow, keep making flow.
Yeah. Which is, I did read something like, I think this is also the last time, it was his last actual release, but I feel like it was the last, I remember reading somewhere, it was the last time he actually had hands-on time with like what wound up being released too, like Band of Gypsys. Like he was actually like there, like he heard the mixes, the finals, the roughs, the whole works, and was like, all right, let's do it, which, I'm sure if you go and you dive into that groovy music for groovy children or whatever, which is everything that got played on those 2 nights rather, you could probably find stuff that you'd be like, oh, make an argument that should have been in there too. But what we got was 6 songs that are, I feel like, some of his best work, and one of the probably 2 Hendrix records I come back to the most.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. And I do encourage folks to try this one first. Try the Band of Gypsys, condensed. Then if you love it, by all means go to that Groovy Children set that has everything.
It's a lot.
But because I like it both ways. I think that there's a lot to be said for condensing it down to 6 tracks and having it be a really strong statement. But the musical archaeologist in me also wants to know, what else can be uncovered?
Yeah.
There is, like the first night they played no Experience tunes.
Right.
Like, the audience there was hearing completely new material, and that's it, nothing but.
Yeah. Right.
And so yeah, it's and then they pepper in the Experience stuff over the next few nights, and then arrangements get changed a little bit, and it's cool. I like hearing that.
Yeah. I also like sometimes wonder, this is my brain, I wonder like just how actually loud it was in that room. Right. Only because like when you see the picture, I think there's a picture somewhere in liner note world. You can't tell even from like the picture on the back where it's like kind of a shot from the side of them. There's a picture in the liner notes where you can actually see the stage setup. And it's like Hendrix is playing like 4 full stacks, which is what, 12, that's 48 speakers worth. Is that right? Is that good math? I don't know. 8, 4. No, it's more than that. It's like, yeah, whatever. It's a lot of speakers. It's early. I can't do math. Get out of here. And each with their own 100-watt head. So it's like, it's ungodly. And like, just like the idea that somehow they were able to tame that in any way, shape, or form. And that's the thing about a lot of live albums from the 70s, and probably why a lot of them were overdubbed, is because on stage volume was up here, and the ability for the PA to handle that was about here.
That's right.
And now it's like switched, like PAs can handle much more, and people, generally speaking, people don't play at that volume anymore, which I think is a shame. But that's because I'm a drummer.
That's right.
That's why we're doing this and not like me like but yeah, I just sometimes like I'm just like, man, what it would have been like, not just to like see it, but like just to feel
it.
Because you're gonna feel that. Like that's, and you can kind of tell, like, even I think in this side picture, I don't even know if you can really see it in this, but like, no, where is it? Oh, it's melting. I'm melting. Yeah, there you go. Oh, right there.
Yeah, I see it.
Monitor.
Okay.
That's the monitor for him to hear himself. He has it on a stool next to his head because it's everything else is so loud. Like, there were no in-ears. There was no way to like, oh, I'm just going to drown everybody out and like, I've got my own little mix and blah, blah. No. You hear everybody all the time. And if you want to hear yourself, it's like you have to put a giant 15-inch speaker next to your head. It's just crazy. It's so amazing, which it makes it even cooler in its own way, because it's like I'm old and I just want to hear rock music played at like rocket ship volume. But
dangerous amps only.
All of them.
I love it. I love it.
Sorry, that was my volume tangent for the day.
No. I'm glad you went on that, because I've been kind of noticing the trend away from amps, and it hurts my heart. Like, that music venue in Las Vegas, the Sphere.
Yes.
It's really fancy. It looks amazing. It's like being inside of a giant VR goggle,
Right.
But they've got hard rules about no amps.
Right.
So you're direct only. And I've listened to some concerts, and I can hear the guitar is being direct, and it sounds like when we played our guitars direct at the Rec Room, all those years ago. That's terrible. Like plugging a Digitech into no.
Right. And I don't, I don't want to be the old guy poo-poos what the new kids are into, because I'm not trying to do that. Like, I understand it all has its place, and I understand it's like in the like sphere of control. Like, I get it. Like, if you're the sound guy, the last thing on earth you want to see in a room the size of a basement is 100-watt amp walk in with no like attenuator, no nothing, and you know that kid is gonna crank it. What's about to happen? Like, I get it. If you're that guy, you're like, But I would argue that this show, part of it is that sound, and part of that sound is the ability of that human being to take everything and just, famously, there are pictures of him just like diming everything. And by diming, I mean turning it all the way to 10, everything, just crank it, just let it rip. At one point, I think he even into all of those amps would put what was called a power booster. They plug it in there to make it louder. So they plug all that in, and you plug your guitar into that and chain them all together. So it's like 100-watt amp plus 4 times over with 8 speakers apiece. I mean, it's insane, but you don't have this record without that.
Yeah. Wind and sound. That's what's happening.
Possibly a headband laced with LSD.
Possibly.
Maybe. I really don't think that ever happened. If anybody has ever heard that story, please tell me about it, because I remember that being a legend when I was a child. Like, he would cut his head and let the acid flow into his head, and so it would go straight to his brain. I was like, what? Seems impossible.
But,
who
knows? Anybody got some tips? Headband tips?
Headband tips. Is that what little Steve does when he plays with the E Street Band? Probably not. I'm sorry, little Steven, if you see this ever. I'm not making fun of you.
Wait a minute. You're not little Steven?
Hey, man. Hey.
You're doing a show with the wrong guy for an hour?
Hey, legit shout out to little Steven for having a great show on Sirius XM. Yeah, he has like a garage rock show that I remember like listening to on the road and being like, man, I've learned more about just like crazy obscure bands out of this show than I've ever heard anywhere. So if you ever hear it, I don't know if it's still on. Probably not. That's probably me dating myself by like 20 years. People are like, Sirius radio? Really? But yeah, sorry. Tangent number 5. So
that's great. We live tangents. The world is a tangent.
Yeah.
Ford, we did it.
I
feel like we've conquered the Band of Gypsys.
Oh, is there ever any conquering that? I think we could probably do this show again next week. 200 things to say that we didn't say today.
Yes. So I say we do it again. What do you think?
Absolutely.
I like listening to music.
Yeah.
it's kind of fun. I mean, I listen to music every day anyway. I listen to music every day anyway. Why not,
right.
Make it a thing?
Yeah, we'll direct our energies in a positive direction.
Semi-structured, positive, semi-positive, semi-productive way.
Correct. And you may or may not get to see me in a headband more often than not. Who knows?
It's a special occasion.
Maybe this is my new thing.
I couldn't find my lava lamp, but I do have some incense going. So Hendrix is in the room.
Yes, he is. He's here.
Well, until next time, people.
Oh, keep listening, kiddos. Boop, boop, boop.